One thing that you had to do yesterday, and the one that I was most interested in having you send me, was the addition of these two different fractions. They had unlike denominators, so the size of the pieces was different to start with. Whenever that happens, the first question you ask yourself, can I turn the smaller into the larger by multiplying? That was not possible in either case. Thus, you needed to multiply the numerator and denominator times the other denominator. So 1 and 2 get multiplied by 5. 3 and 5 get multiplied by 2. That is the other denominator. The new fractions that gave us were 5/10 plus 6/10, and you resulted with 11 pieces. Those pieces stayed the same size once we got them the same size. You still need to look at the end result of your addition and ask yourself, can I divide top and bottom by the same number? Is there a common factor? There is not here. But the other thing you need to look at is the top smaller than the bottom. It is not. So it takes 10 pieces to make one whole thing. We have 11 pieces. So we can take out 10 of those 10 pieces, and those 10/10ths become one whole thing. We have 1/10 remaining, so we have one whole thing with the 10/10ths, and we have 1/10. This is the final answer I was looking for. If you got to 11/10, that got you partial credit. But you must always write fractions in the simplest form. Now, there is another mathematical way to go from an improper fraction to figure out how many whole amounts you have and how many pieces are left over. We haven't needed to do that yet because we're still dealing with small enough fractions. But in the coming days, I will be showing you how to take amounts like 53/10 and figuring out how many whole amounts there are and how many tenths would be left over. So please know that that is coming. This is the other problem that you were asked to solve yesterday. Multiply 1 and 2 by the other denominator, which is a 3. Multiply 1 and 3 times the other denominator, which was a 2. I asked you to show all of your work. You needed to show me this step. You also needed to show me that your new fractions were 3/6 plus 2/6. When you add that together, your pieces stay the same size. You still have sixths. You just had 3 of them and 2 more of those sixths, so that means you have 5 of those sixths. 5 is 1 less than 6. I don't have to do any other checking. I know that is in simplest form. What about today? So glad you asked. The first thing you need to do is find page 639 in your math book. You need to copy 2 parts. The first part you need to copy is a reminder of checking your fractions after you've done all the steps to add. You need to check for simplest form to see if the fraction is reduced or if it's in lowest terms. Those all mean the same thing. To do that, check if the top is smaller than the bottom and check if there's a common factor. Be sure that you divided your top and bottom by the same number. On the top of the page, a reminder of how to get common denominators. Common denominators just mean you're talking about the same size pieces. So there are 2 quick steps to getting common denominators. The first one, if you can get away with doing this, your life is good. If you can turn the smaller into the larger denominator by multiplying, do that. If not, then you have to multiply the top and bottom by the other denominator, meaning you will have to change both fractions so that you have new denominators on the bottom. What you need to do now is you need to go ahead and do all of page 639. Once you have this information copied down, do all of page 639. And time yourself. This should not take you longer than a half hour. If this takes you longer than 30 minutes, hopefully, first of all, it means you're being very careful and you got all the right answers. If it takes you longer than 30 minutes, you will watch the rest of this video and then you will skip to the online practice. If it takes you less than 30 minutes, I'm going to have you go on and do 2 other steps with these pages. So, timing is important. I don't want you to take forever on this. It is most important that you practice this page as it is written, including copying the information here. Right now, pause the video. When you see the resume sign, I will start showing you the answers. Okay, here we go with the answers. 3 times nothing will get me to a 5. Thus, I need to multiply times the other denominator. Be sure that you showed this. The other denominator here is a 3, so multiply top and bottom times 3. The new fractions, you should have written them down below. 5/15 plus 3/15 is 8/15. Now I have to check, is the top smaller than the bottom? Yes, 8 is smaller than 15. Is there a common factor that I can divide them both by? Well, they're not both even, so I can't divide by 2. 3 times nothing equals 8. 4 times nothing equals 15. They don't both end with a 5 or a 0, so they're not divisible by 5. 6 times nothing is 8. 7 times nothing is 8. And when I get to my numerator, the 8, 8 times nothing is 15, I can know for sure this is in simplest form. 8/15 is the final answer. Can I turn a 2 into a 5 by multiplying? I cannot, so I multiply top and bottom by the other denominator. I used a 5 at 1/2. Now I use a 2 at 1/5. I end up with 5/10 plus 2/10. 5 and 2 is 7. My pieces stay the same size. Once I go to all the trouble of having a common denominator, I keep it. 7 times nothing is 10. They're not both even numbers. 3 times nothing is 10. 4 times nothing is 7 or 10. 5 times nothing is 7. 6 times nothing is 7. And I am at 7, so I know it is simplest form, 7/10. 5/12 times 1/4. Now, if you get too much in a habit, you will miss the fact that I can turn 4 into a 12 by multiplying. So I only have to change one fraction. If you didn't notice this, stop, pause the video, erase all of your work, and redo this, just turning a 4 into a 12. How? Multiply top and bottom times 3. 1 times 3 is 3. 4 times 3 is 12. I now have pieces that are both 12ths. It takes 12 of these pieces to make a whole thing. So I keep those pieces the same size. 5 plus 3 is 8. 8 is smaller than 12, but I also notice they are both even numbers. That means they have a common factor, which is 2. What times 2 is 8? Well, that would be a 4. What times 2 is 12? That's a 6. But look, 4 and 6 are still both even numbers. All right, that means they still have a common factor. Divide again. What times 2 is 4? That's a 2. What times 2 is 6? That would be a 3. 2 is 1 less than 3. This now is my final answer, 2/3. Now here's something interesting as well. I had to divide by 2 times. That tells me I could have divided by one larger common factor and just divided once. So if I go back to 8/12, if I had recognized that 4 is a common factor of both, I could have gotten to 2 times 4 is 8. 3 times 4 is 12. I could have gotten to my final answer with just one step of division. It does not matter how you get to the final answer as long as you do not stop if your fraction, the first time you've divided, is not in lowest terms. 2/3 and 1/6. I can turn a 3 into a 6 by multiplying, so this is the only one that I need to change. Multiply top and bottom times the same number. I have 4/6 plus 1 more sixth. The pieces are the same size. How many sixths do I have? I have 5 of them. I nearly have the whole amount. 5 is 1 less than 6. I know that is in simplest form. 2 and 4. I can turn a 2 into a 4 by multiplying. Whatever I do to the bottom, I must do to the top. 1/2 becomes 2/4. I add to that 1 more fourth and end up with 3 pieces where 4 of them make a whole thing. I only have 3 of the 4. 3 is 1 less than 4. It is in simplest form. Goes up on the line. 8 and 16. 8 times 2 is 16. Whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. 10/16 plus 1 more 16th. The size of the pieces stays 16ths. It takes 16 of these little pieces to make a whole amount, to make one whole. I only have 11 of those pieces, so I don't have a whole. 11 is less than 16. They are not both even numbers. 3 times nothing is 11. 4 times nothing is 11. 11 is a prime number. I don't have to ask anything else. It's in simplest form. How's that for another shortcut to decide if it's reduced as far as a fraction can go? If there's a prime number involved, you're well on your way to having simplest form. 5ths and 10ths. I can turn the smaller into the larger by multiplying. I have 6/10. I add to that 3 more tenths. I get 9/10. 9 is 1 less than 10. It is in simplest form. 8ths and 16ths. I can turn the 8 into the 16 by multiplying by 2. There went the lights. Good thing it's the middle of the day on Saturday, so it didn't get too dark on you. 10/16 plus 3 more 16ths gives 13/16. 13 is a prime number. As long as the denominator is not a multiple of 13, this is in simplest form. 13 times 2 is 26, not 16. So this is reduced as far as the fraction can go. It's in lowest terms. Final answer. Can I turn a 5 into a 20 by multiplying? Hopefully you said yes. 5 times 4 gets 20. If you didn't see that, stop the video now, redo this problem, erase all your work, or just do it on a sticky note again, changing only the fifths so they become 20ths. How many 20ths? Well, that would be 12 20ths, plus we have 3 more 20ths. That gives 15 20ths. Now, this one a lot of 5th graders miss, whether or not it is in simplest form, because they're not both even numbers. So a lot of 5th graders will stop there. Well, 3 times 5 is 15, but 3 times nothing is 20. 4 times nothing is 15, but 5 is a factor of both 15 and 20. So I must divide my numerator and denominator by 5. What do I get? I get 3/4. 3 is 1 less than 4. I know that is in simplest form. It's lowest terms. It's got the fewest pieces to it. Finally, 12, 13, and 14. Can turn the smallest into the largest by multiplying by 4. So I end up with 4/12 plus 7/12. And I get pieces that are 12ths. I have 11 of those pieces. 11 is 1 less than 12. That's in simplest form. There's my answer. Multiply top and bottom times 2. New fraction is 6/16 plus 3/16. 3 plus 6 is 9. So this part matches the bottom number is going to be 16ths. So the only thing that I write on the line next to y equals 16. Y does not equal 9/16. The y here, they only want to know what you substitute as the denominator. So that's a little bit tricky. This is the answer to the addition, but 16 is the answer to the unknown. Having noticed that, look ahead at number 14. If you wrote an entire fraction for your answer, switch it out. It's only interested in the numerator when the denominator is 40. Hopefully you've done that. Now I'll show you. I must multiply times the other denominator because 5 times nothing equals 8. So I multiply top and bottom of 2/5 times 8, top and bottom of 3/8 times 5. My new fractions indeed have pieces where it takes 40 of these little pieces to make one whole thing. So just like it shows you, my final answer will have pieces that are 40ths. Still don't know how many of them there are. 3 times 5 is 15. I need to add to that 2 times 8, which is 16. 15 plus 16. You'll notice I'm doing it off here on the side. 11, carry 1, 31. 31 40ths is the final answer to the fraction adding, but the W is just equal to 31. Now, if this took you a half hour, then I want you to skip the next video. If it took you less than a half hour, I want you to watch the next video. We are going to play with these a little bit more. Thank you.